Hazael, the Syrian official whose predicted rise altered the fate of Israel. A prophet walks into the palace of an enemy king, knowing exactly how the conversation will end. The king will ask a question. The prophet will answer truthfully. And within days that answer will trigger a murder, a coup, and decades of bloodshed that will reshape the entire region. The year is 842 BCE. The prophet is Elisha. The enemy king is Ben-Hadad II of Damascus. And standing in the shadows, listening to every word, is a man named Hazael, a trusted royal official, who has no idea he's about to become one of the most brutal conquerors in ancient Near Eastern history. But here's what makes this story absolutely chilling. Elisha knows. He knows exactly what Hazael will do, who he'll become, and the horrors he'll unleash on Israel. And he tells him anyway. Why would a prophet of Israel reveal a devastating future to the very man who will cause it? What did Elisha see when he looked at Hazael that made him weep openly in the palace? And how did a single conversation between these two men set in motion events that archaeologists are still uncovering evidence of today, nearly 3,000 years later? The story starts with a desperate king lying sick in his palace in Damascus, the glittering capital of Aram, Syria. Ben-Hadad II had been a thorn in Israel's side for years, leading military campaigns that pushed deep into Israelite territory. But now he's bedridden, vulnerable, and terrified he won't recover. When he hears that Elisha the prophet, whose reputation for miracles and divine knowledge has spread throughout the region, happens to be visiting Damascus, he sees an opportunity. He sends Hazael, described in the biblical text as his servant or official, with 40 camel loads of gifts and a single burning question: will I recover from this illness? Now, imagine being Hazael in this moment. You're a high-ranking official, trusted enough to represent the king in matters of life and death. You approach this foreign prophet expecting perhaps some vague reassurance, maybe a ritual, possibly a request for more gifts. Instead, Elisha delivers an answer that splits reality in two. He tells Hazael, "Go and say to him, you will certainly recover. Nevertheless, the Lord has revealed to me that he will in fact die." Wait, what? The prophet just told Hazael to lie to his king, or did he? Scholars have debated this passage for centuries. Some translations suggest Elisha is giving Hazael permission to deliver a hopeful message while privately revealing the king's actual fate. Others interpret it as Elisha predicting that the illness itself isn't fatal, but something else will kill Ben-Hadad. Something, or more accurately, someone. And that's when it happens. According to 2 Kings 8:11-13, Elisha fixes his gaze on Hazael and begins to weep. Hazael, confused, asks why the prophet is crying. Elisha's response is absolutely haunting. "Because I know the harm you will do to the Israelites. You will set fire to their fortified places, kill their young men with the sword, dash their little ones to the ground, and rip open their pregnant women." Imagine hearing that about yourself, that you're destined to commit atrocities you haven't even considered. Hazael's response is telling. How could your servant, a mere dog, accomplish such a feat? He's not denying he would do it. He's questioning whether he has the power. And Elisha gives him the answer that changes everything. "The Lord has shown me that you will become king of Aram." The very next day, Hazael takes a thick cloth, soaks it in water, and spreads it over Ben-Hadad's face, suffocating him. The text is brutally simple. So Hazael succeeded him as king. One conversation, One prophecy, one murder, and suddenly the geopolitical landscape of the ancient Near East has shifted. But here's where the story transcends ancient religious texts and enters the realm of verified history. For centuries, skeptics questioned whether Hazael even existed outside biblical narrative. And archaeologists started digging. In 1992, a fragment of a stone inscription was discovered at Tel Dan in northern Israel. Dating to the 9th century BCE, it describes military victories by Hazael, king of Aram. The inscription literally names him and confirms his aggressive campaigns against Israel. In 2003, another inscription surfaced, this time from Hazael himself, commemorating his military exploits and building projects. The man Elisha wept over wasn't mythological. He was devastatingly real. And the destruction Elisha predicted? Archaeological evidence supports that, too. Excavations at multiple Israelite sites, including Hazor, Gath, and Tel Rehav, show massive destruction layers dated precisely to Hazael's reign. These weren't minor skirmishes. Entire cities were burned to ash. At Gath, archaeologists uncovered a siege trench nearly 2.5 miles long, one of the largest ever found from this period. The biblical text in 2 Kings 10:32-33 confirms that Hazael overpowered the Israelites throughout their territory, conquering lands east of the Jordan and pushing into Israel proper. The prophet's tears were justified. Hazael's military campaigns were as brutal as predicted. But the question that haunts this entire narrative is, why? Why did Elisha tell Hazael his future if he knew it would lead to such horror? Was the prophecy a warning that Hazael ignored? Or was it a catalyst that triggered the very ambition it described? This is the ancient version of a grandfather paradox. If Elisha hadn't revealed Hazael's destiny, would Hazael have murdered his king? Would he have become the conqueror who devastated Israel? Or did the prophecy itself create the future it foretold? Jewish and Christian theologians have wrestled with this for millennia. Some argue that Elisha was simply revealing what God had already determined, that Hazael's rise was inevitable, part of divine judgment against Israel for its idolatry and covenant violations. Others suggest Hazael already possessed the ambition and capacity for violence. Elisha merely confirmed what was already in his heart. Medieval commentator Rashi proposed that the prophecy was a test, revealing Hazael's true character when given knowledge of potential power. He didn't recoil in horror at the predicted atrocities. He questioned only whether he could achieve them. From a historical perspective, Hazael's reign marks a critical inflection point. Under his rule and that of his son Hazael ben, Aram Damascus reached its peak power, dominating the entire Levant for nearly half a century. The northern kingdom of Israel was reduced to a shadow of its former strength. 2 Kings 13-7 notes that Israel's army was reduced to 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers, for the king of Aram had destroyed the rest and made them like the dust at threshing time. This isn't poetic exaggeration, it's describing a nation brought to its knees, stripped of military capacity, existing only as a vassal state. Yet here's the final twist that brings this ancient story into sharp focus. Hazael's dominance didn't last. Within decades of his death, the rising Assyrian Empire under Adad-nirari III crushed Damascus, ending Aramean supremacy and inadvertently allowing Israel to recover. The very power Hazael built through violence and conquest crumbled almost as quickly as it rose. The man whose destiny seemed so terrifyingly fixed became just another name in the long chronicle of ancient Near Eastern kings who conquered, ruled, and faded. So what actually happened in that palace in Damascus in 842 BCE? A prophet looked at a man and saw not just who he was, but who he would become. He saw the violence, the ambition, the capacity for horror, and he wept, because knowledge doesn't always mean power to change. Hazael heard his future and walked directly into it, murdering his king and fulfilling every word Elisha spoke. And Israel paid the price in ash and blood exactly as predicted. The story of Hazael and Elisha isn't just ancient history. It's a question that echoes forward. If you knew your future, really knew it, would it change what you do next? Or would the knowing itself become the thing that seals your fate?